The world of the British monarchy has always been a landscape defined by an intricate tapestry of tradition, unspoken protocols, and a carefully managed public facade. For centuries, the public has looked upon the royal household with a mixture of reverence and curiosity, understanding that behind the heavy palace gates lies a realm where every movement is choreographed and every word is weighed with immense historical gravity. However, in recent years, the nature of this fascination has shifted dramatically, transforming from a respectful distance into a high-stakes arena of public spectacle, legal battles, and deep-seated familial fractures. The modern era has brought with it an unprecedented level of scrutiny, where personal grievances are no longer whispered in the long corridors of ancestral estates, but are instead aired in the global media marketplace, dissected by commentators, and scrutinized by millions of viewers across the globe. This evolution has created a volatile atmosphere where the lines between public duty and personal ambition have become deeply blurred, leading to a state of perpetual tension that captivates audiences while simultaneously threatening the foundational stability of one of the world's most enduring institutions. As we stand on the precipice of what promises to be a highly turbulent week in the ongoing narrative surrounding the House of Windsor, whispers and rumors have begun to circulate through the well-informed circles of the legal and journalistic establishments. These are not merely passing pieces of gossip, but rather highly specific indications that a major turning point is imminent, one that could profoundly reshape the public standing of those involved. For months, a sense of quiet anticipation has been building behind the scenes, as observers wait for the resolution of a highly contentious legal battle that took place earlier this year. To many, that courtroom drama already feels like a lifetime ago, buried under the relentless avalanche of the modern news cycle, yet its implications continue to ripple outward, creating an atmosphere of palpable unease. The stakes could not be higher, and the impending resolution is poised to send shockwaves far beyond the courtroom walls, reminding everyone of the volatile nature of seeking vindication in the full glare of the public eye. Before we delve deeper into the complex web of relationships, legal strategies, and impending decisions that are driving this current crisis, we would like to invite you to join our growing community of observers who follow these developments with a keen and analytical eye. By subscribing to our channel, you will ensure that you never miss an update as this fascinating story continues to unfold day by day. Our commitment is to bring you the most detailed insights, the context behind the headlines, and the underlying dynamics that shape the actions of the figures at the center of this modern royal drama. Your support allows us to continue providing this comprehensive coverage, and we look forward to having you with us as we navigate the twists and turns of a narrative that is moving at a breathtaking pace. The current atmosphere of uncertainty is heightened by the fact that the expected development is a judgment rather than a verdict, a distinction that underscores the civil nature of the proceedings and the heavy responsibility resting upon the shoulders of a single judge. In high-profile cases of this nature, the legal system moves with a deliberate, sometimes agonizing slowness, allowing tension to build to a fever pitch before the final decision is made public. Sources within legal circles suggest that the written judgment has already been finalized, and that the legal teams representing both sides have either received the document or have been firmly tipped off regarding its contents. This creates a highly charged environment where the involved parties are fully aware of what is to come, even as the general public remains in the dark, waiting for the official release, which could happen as early as Wednesday or Thursday. The silence from both camps is deafening, a sure sign that the impending announcement is viewed as a monumental event that will require careful strategic positioning the moment it enters the public domain to truly understand the weight of this moment. One must recall the extraordinary nature of the evidence that was presented during the hearings earlier this year. The proceedings were marked by a series of dramatic revelations that seemed to completely undermine the core narrative put forward by the claimant, who had long maintained a position of absolute detachment from the mainstream media. The assertion that any information obtained by newspapers could only have been the result of unlawful gathering was systematically challenged by a trail of communications that told a vastly different story. These exchanges, involving prominent figures from the journalistic world, suggested a level of familiarity and direct interaction that stood in stark contrast to the sworn testimonies delivered in court. The public exposure of these inconsistencies created a spectacle that was both fascinating and damaging, as the image of a detached, persecuted figure was replaced by evidence of active, sometimes flirtatious engagement with the very institutions being publicly condemned. The tension is further exacerbated by the memory of specific individuals who were dragged into the legal spotlight, often against their wishes or under circumstances that many deemed highly ill-advised. Well-established journalists, recognized for their extensive careers and significant professional standing, found themselves at the center of a cross-examination that sought to question their integrity and methods. The strategy of relying on highly controversial sources, including individuals with past convictions related to illicit information gathering, added a layer of complexity and ethical ambiguity to the case that did not go unnoticed by legal experts or the public. As the final judgment looms, the wisdom of this aggressive legal approach is being questioned more than ever, with many predicting that the outcome will be far from the resounding victory that was so confidently anticipated by the legal team behind the challenge. This impending legal climax is not happening in a vacuum. It appears to be a significant, if hidden, factor in the sudden and spectacular complications surrounding a planned return to the United Kingdom. The intricate choreography of a high-profile tour, complete with detailed operational notes and precisely timed media briefings, has begun to unravel in a remarkably public fashion. The contrast between the formal announcements of charitable visits and the subsequent leaks suggesting a total reconsideration of the plans has created a sense of profound confusion. While the official narrative points to unresolved logistical and security concerns as the primary reason for this sudden hesitation, seasoned observers are looking closely at the timing, suggesting that the fear of an unfavorable legal ruling landing while on British soil is the true catalyst for the current state of panic and retreat. The breakdown of the planned itinerary for the United Kingdom tour offers a stark look into how quickly a highly coordinated public relations campaign can collapse under the weight of behind-the-scenes panic. Just hours before the entire narrative was upended, an official operational note had been meticulously distributed to selected media outlets, outlining a packed schedule that seemed designed to project an image of impactful public service and continued relevance. The briefing detailed prestigious engagements, including a major address at Chatham House, a scheduled visit to the historic Chelsea Hospital to meet with veterans, and the prominent opening ceremony of the Invictus Games. These announcements were intended to set a tone of dignified philanthropy, yet beneath this polished surface, other more personal and sensitive plans were being briefed elsewhere. Reports began to surface that the trip would also include a highly publicized visit to the final resting place of Princess Diana at the Althorpe estate, a detail that many critics viewed as a calculated attempt to weave personal history into a media-driven narrative, especially given the ongoing production of a documentary timed for the upcoming anniversary of her passing. However, the carefully constructed facade remained intact for less than 24 hours before a sudden and dramatic shift occurred. In what appeared to be a strategic move to manage an impending retreat, Information was leaked to the press, suggesting that the entire trip was in jeopardy and that the family might not appear after all. The justification offered for this sudden reversal was an alleged unexpected crisis regarding the provision of a formal state security package. The narrative put forward by the representatives suggested a state of sudden shock and vulnerability, portraying a family left exposed by cold and unfeeling bureaucratic decisions. Yet this explanation quickly fell apart under closer examination, as the very briefing note issued the previous evening explicitly acknowledged that the necessary risk management board assessments had not been completed and that no official security package was currently in place. The realization that this limitation was fully known prior to the public rollout exposed a profound level of contradiction, suggesting that the security issue was not a sudden obstacle, but rather a long-standing reality that was being weaponized for maximum public impact, as the realization sank in that the British state would not be pressured into altering its established protocols. The reaction from the holiday retreat in Portugal was described by insiders as one of acute emotional distress and deep isolation. Far from the confident public images usually projected, the atmosphere behind closed doors was reportedly filled with intense anxiety and frustration, with descriptions emerging of tearful phone calls and a growing sense of grievance against the institutional figures who manage the daily operations of the royal household. This emotional volatility highlights a recurring pattern of behavior where the continuation of a long-established status quo is treated as a personal assault. For over half a decade, the legal and administrative realities regarding state-funded protection have remained entirely unchanged, a position that has been repeatedly upheld through multiple, costly and unsuccessful court challenges. The persistent refusal to accept these clear, legally validated boundaries has led to a state of heightened paranoia, where objective administrative decisions are interpreted as a coordinated campaign of personal exclusion. This refusal to accept the reality of an altered status has led to a highly controversial strategy that many within the palace walls have characterized as an attempt at emotional manipulation. Diaz acted at an absolute highest level. The timing of these dramatic public declarations, filled with hints of security fears and the potential withholding of family visits, appears to be an effort to force a personal intervention from King Charles. By orchestrating a public debate over safety and access to grandchildren, a direct and intense pressure was placed upon a monarch who is currently navigating his own serious health challenges. This approach has been viewed by seasoned commentators as an unprecedented breach of familial and institutional decency, utilizing the natural affection and longing of a grandfather as a bargaining chip in an ongoing dispute over official status and state-provided perks. To the eternal credit of the institution, the king has remained resolute, refusing to override the independent governmental committees that dictate security protocols, thereby maintaining a clear line between personal family relations and the formal responsibilities of the state. The failure of this strategy has only intensified the resentment directed toward the senior advisors who manage the royal estate, most notably figures like Sir Clive Alderton, the king's principal private secretary. In the narrative put forward by the aggrieved parties, these dedicated career professionals are routinely demonized as manipulative figures operating within a deep state apparatus designed to restrict access and maintain division. This characterization stands in sharp contrast to the reality of these individuals, who function essentially as high-level civil servants dedicated to the smooth operation of a historic institution for relatively modest compensation, compared to the vast commercial sums generated by modern media deals. The bitterness directed toward these advisors has a long history, famously illustrated in past autobiographical writings, where they were ridiculed with insect-like comparisons and dismissed with profound contempt. This ongoing hostility reflects a fundamental inability to distinguish between personal animosity and the duty of professional staff to uphold the regulations, traditions, and boundaries that protect the integrity of the monarchy, while the institutional friction continues to dominate the headlines. The most devastating impact of this sudden cancellation is felt by the very organizations and individuals that the tour was ostensibly organized to support. The true casualties of this profound ego-driven dispute are the wounded veterans, the dedicated staff, and the hundreds of international participants who have spent years preparing for the Invictus Games and related charitable events. For these individuals, the occasion is a hard-fought celebration of resilience and recovery, a moment that requires immense logistical coordination and personal sacrifice from volunteers and organizers alike. To have these deeply meaningful efforts suddenly reduced to a secondary consideration, discarded in a moment of personal petulance over security arrangements that were already well known, represents a profound failure of the promise that service is universal. The continuous use of noble causes as a protective shield against public criticism has been laid bare, revealing an approach where charities and vulnerable individuals are treated as mere backdrops for an ongoing personal drama, to be picked up for public relations benefit and cast aside the moment the spotlight no longer serves a personal agenda. The exploitation of charitable platforms for personal leverage marks a profound shift in how these high-profile figures are perceived by the public, eroding whatever remains of their philanthropic credibility. For years, the Invictus Games had been heralded as a shining beacon of genuine impact, an initiative where the focus remained squarely on the extraordinary courage of wounded servicemen and women. However, as the continuous friction between personal desires and institutional rules takes center stage, the reality of the situation has become increasingly difficult for the public to ignore. Legal experts and veteran royal commentators have noted that this pattern of prioritizing individual status over collective responsibility is not a new development, but rather the culmination of a deeply ingrained behavioral framework. The willingness to abandon long-standing commitments to volunteers, hospital staff, and international competitors at a moment's notice reveals a transactional view of public engagement, where the noble causes of others are systematically reduced to mere props in an ongoing narrative of personal grievance. This consistent evasion of personal accountability has a long and well-documented history, stretching back into the formative years of the characters involved. Throughout numerous past public disputes and highly publicized memoirs, a recurring theme has emerged wherein every personal misstep, controversial decision, or social error is systematically blamed on external forces. Whether it was the highly criticized decision to wear an offensive costume to a private gathering, or the minor internal disputes regarding military regulations on facial hair at a formal wedding, the narrative remains rigidly identical. In this worldview, the individual is always the passive victim of overbearing relatives, manipulative advisors, or an unfeeling societal system. The objective reality of the situation, such as the simple fact that military dress codes are governed by centuries-old historic protocols rather than personal malice, is consistently ignored in favor of a highly emotional interpretation that feeds a sense of perpetual persecution. To fully comprehend the depth of this current crisis, one must examine the psychological framework that underpins such a profound disconnect from reality. The reliance on highly unconventional and entirely unregulated therapeutic practices, which have been openly discussed on global broadcasting networks, has drawn sharp criticism from mental health professionals who warn against the dangers of unchecked self-absorption. When therapeutic models are utilized exclusively to validate personal desires and reinforce an absolute sense of victimhood, the individual becomes increasingly incapable of recognizing the needs, feelings, or legitimate boundaries of those around them. This creates a state of profound isolation, where the advice of dedicated professionals is completely discarded in favor of expensive echo chambers that tell the individual exactly what they wish to hear. The resulting behavioral pattern is one of extreme volatility, marked by intense public outbursts, sudden retreats, and an inability to maintain stable long-term partnerships with media organizations, charitable institutions, or immediate family members. Despite the intense drama and the highly publicized threats of a total withdrawal from the upcoming United Kingdom events, seasoned industry observers maintain a strong sense of skepticism regarding the permanence of this retreat. The commercial reality facing the modern Sussex brand is one of undeniable urgency, as the initial massive financial windfalls from revealing tell-all media deals have largely dried up, and the global appetite for perpetual familial conflict has dramatically diminished. Because their current lifestyle and independent security apparatus require an immense and continuous stream of revenue, maintaining a visible connection to historic royal heritage remains their most valuable commercial asset. Consequently, representatives from the media world predict that a compromise will inevitably be engineered, possibly involving a highly shortened single-day appearance that allows the couple to capture necessary footage for upcoming documentary projects, while minimizing exposure to an increasingly hostile British public and press should such a brief return occur. The institutional and personal ramifications for the British monarchy will be exceptionally severe, placing an immense strain on a household that has already endured a period of historic hardship. King Charles III has consistently demonstrated a profound desire to maintain a pathway for familial reconciliation, offering generous olive branches such as private accommodation within protected royal palaces, often at a significant diplomatic cost to his relationship with his eldest son, Prince William. The Prince of Wales has long advocated for a far more definitive and uncompromising stance, drawing clear parallels to past historic crises within the royal family, where senior figures who chose to walk away from public duty were firmly and permanently removed from the institutional sphere. The king's persistent leniency, while understandable from a paternal perspective, has created a dangerous ambiguity that the California-based couple continues to exploit, using the threat of total estrangement to continuously test the boundaries of the British state. The optical damage of rewarding such disruptive behavior with official royal hospitality cannot be overstated, as the British public has grown increasingly weary of what is widely perceived as a double standard. For the millions of subjects who look to the monarchy as a symbol of steady duty, quiet dignity, and adherence to national rules, the sight of individuals who have spent half a decade launching fierce public attacks on the institution being welcomed back into the royal fold is deeply troubling. If formal palace accommodations are granted to those who refuse to follow basic state protocols, it sends a highly damaging message that undermines the sacrifices made by working royals who continue to carry out their duties under intense daily scrutiny. The growing consensus among the public and senior advisors alike is that the time for vague compromises and emotional concessions has definitively passed, and that the boundaries separating private family dynamics from the official, state-sanctioned apparatus of the monarchy must be enforced with absolute and unwavering clarity, as this highly turbulent chapter reaches its inevitable climax. The upcoming legal judgments and the unfolding chaos of the cancelled tour serve as a powerful cautionary tale regarding the perils of modern celebrity culture when mismatched against the enduring weight of historic tradition. The attempt to reshape an ancient rules-based institution through the sheer force of media pressure, emotional manipulation, and public relations campaigns has resulted in a profound state of isolation and a catastrophic collapse in global public standing. The ultimate lesson of this ongoing royal drama is that true service cannot be simulated, nor can it be used as a temporary shield for personal ambition. As the dust settles on this latest round of public maneuvers, the institution of the monarchy will undoubtedly endure. Guided by those who understand that the heavy burden of the crown requires a total surrender of individual ego to the greater concept of national duty, leaving those who chose a different path to navigate the consequences of their historic choices in the cold light of global public opinion.